Bruno, Mirabel, Augustin and Julieta, Dolores, Camilo, Bruno and Pepa. But do you recall the long list of scrapped madrigals?
Well, you're about to. I think it's safe to say that if you're watching this video, you're a big fan of Disney's Encanto. That or you just got lost on your way to a much better channel. Here's a map for you. But if it's the former, then I'm sure you're familiar with this little number, the Art of Encanto book. It's full of all kinds of cut content, concept art, and cool behind-the-scenes extras. I'm certainly familiar with it. I mean, it's been the talking point of many of the Encanto videos I've made so far. You might not have checked it out yet since it is a little bit pricey, but what if I told you that you could view this entire book without paying a dime? What? That's right! In order to drum up hype for the film during the Oscars, Disney has released the Art of Encanto book digitally for absolutely free. No weird piracy measures or shady back alley deals necessary, just a simple click on a link in a Twitter post. So if you've ever had to choose between feeding your Encanto obsession and feeding your kids, fear not, my friend! You no longer have to make that choice because you can now view all that sweet, sweet concept art for no charge at all. And you should probably see a therapist because the fact that you struggle with that choice at all is very concerning. Seriously, get some help. I've said time and time again that the premise for Encanto is just rife with imagination and creativity, and looking at the amount of awesome stuff they had to cut just further proves my point. I mean, look at all this stuff. Original casita designs, scrapped room concepts, rainbow waterfalls, floating towns, Luisa cuddling puppies, Pepa on a motorcycle, Felix auditioning for Anger from Inside Out, freaking punk rock Isabel? Yes, please! But in my opinion, the best behind-the-scenes bits for this movie are the unused characters. There were so many concepts for Madrigal family members that were just left on the cutting room floor, and it's a major shame since a lot of these could have had some potential. I understand why all this was done. I mean, you put too many characters in a movie and the cast goes from an ensemble to an so confused. Who's this guy again? But considering how much imagination was obviously put into these scrapped characters, I think they deserve at least a little time in the spotlight. So in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at every rejected Encanto character that I could find, from the Encanto art book and beyond. Not only will I be checking out their designs, their descriptions, and their supposed gifts, but also discussing whether or not they should have been in the movie, and what role they could have played if they were. There isn't a ton to go off of with some of these characters, maybe a few images at best, but in the end, this is all just for fun. I mainly just want to fanboy about some behind the scenes stuff and hopefully encourage others to check it out themselves. I mean, it is literally free at the moment, so what have you got to lose? As usual, if you have any thoughts on the characters I'll be showing off, or if you have any thoughts on my thoughts, feel free to leave a comment below. But for now, let's see what unique things we can infer about the Madrigals that never were. Let us begin. First up, I'm sure you're wondering how any Encanto character gets created, and the process is actually more interesting than you'd think. Before production on the story even began, the film's directors, Brian Howard and Jared Bush, brought together all the Latino and Latina employees working at Disney Studios and created what they called their Familia Group. This group was encouraged to share very personal family stories, interact with one another, give feedback on the film, and even host their own holiday get-togethers. This is obviously what makes the characters in Encanto feel so organic, since they come straight from actual stories of Latino families told by people who formed their own little family in-house. Leave it to Disney to just plus every single thing they make. The two directors welcomed as many perspectives as they could manage, and this of course resulted in character concepts aplenty. Mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters, some of which made it into the final product, and a lot of which obviously didn't. We're already super familiar with the Final Familia, but who are the Madrigals that simply didn't make the cut? Well, let's take a look. To start off, let's check out this Madrigal family photo full of beta designs. And while at first you may have no idea what's going on, there are a few recognizable faces if you look closely. Like we've got Beta Augustin at the top there, looking dapper as heck in his teal plaid suit, and really embodying the city man that he was always meant to be. We've also got Beta Felix over on the left with a big goofy grin on his face. I don't blame you for being happy, man. Your character basically went from pitch to final product with barely any changes at all. They loved you on the first try. Why change perfection, right? This girl is Beta Isabella, apparently, who looks pretty similar, just favoring pink and yellow instead of purple. Beta Abuela is probably my favorite though, with a design that definitely embodies the stern but loving grandmother. Heck, she's got a hawk on one hand and an alpaca in the other. You want some fries with that symbolism? And of course there's Beta Mirabel at the bottom, with a very interesting look on her face. Hey there. You like accordions? As for the characters we don't recognize, the first one that really stands out to me is this flaming girl on the bottom left. Apparently her name is Fuega, which is literally the Spanish term for fire. Hey, here's some more Spanish for ya. En la nariz. Also, how did the parents come up with a name like that? Madrigals don't get their gift until they're like 5 years old. So did they just expect her gift to be fire related and then name her as such? Like, did she just pop right out of the womb being super angry and they're like, Fuega. Anyway, it seems that her gift would have been the ability to produce flames whenever she was mad. Kind of like how Pepa creates storms whenever she's stressed. She's also kind of given Isabella the stink eye here, so it's possible that she was meant to fill the jealous younger sister archetype, in the same way that all the existing Madrigals filled a certain family archetype. At first, it might seem like the gift of going ablaze whenever you're mad is more of a curse than a blessing. I mean, all you need is one bad hair day and Casita would be a pile of ash. But if Fuega was in the film, I could totally see a character like her going through an arc where she learns to love herself, stop comparing herself to others, and see the unique beauty she has within. Heck, you can even tie this in with her gift of fire. She'd start off having very low self-esteem, constantly feeling inferior to her perfect sister, and generally hating herself. And the fact that her gift does nothing but cause suffering and destruction whenever she's mad just makes her feel worse. But eventually she learns an important lesson. Much like how fire is a destructive force and seemingly terrible thing at first glance, it can also be beautiful. It's warm, it's bright, it's colorful, it's life-giving, it's a wonderful thing. And once she gains some self-acceptance, she learns to better control her gift and is able to produce fire without blowing a gasket every time. I don't know what the original creators planned to do with her, but just judging from the look and feel of her character, it seems like she could have had some decent potential. Moving more towards the middle, we have these two, Pepa and Letta. Yep, apparently the Pepa we know and love had a twin sister somewhere during development. You might think that's a little weird at first, but what if I told you that Pepa originally started off as an indestructible daredevil? Yeah, now how weird do you feel? Anyways, do I think that the concept of Pepa having a twin sister could have worked? Maybe? If they stuck with the Pepa as a daredevil angle, maybe the twin sister could have been the opposite? Like, instead of being indestructible and reckless, maybe she's actually very cautious and careful? She could be born with some kind of genetic condition that makes it easy for her to be injured, which do exist, by the way, and her gift could involve making force fields to protect her and her family from getting hurt. I don't know, I really like the idea of opposite twins that keep each other centered. Like Letta could convince her sister to be a little more careful, cause she may be indestructible, but the world and people around her sure aren't. And Pepa could encourage her sister to go out and try new things, cause it is a dangerous world out there, especially for her, but that doesn't mean she should miss out on it completely. Again, another concept that would have taken up too much screen time, I think, but it is fun to think about. Now, who's this fella to the right of the twins? Why, that's Gabriel, apparently. And just looking at the family photo as a whole, the only member he bears any resemblance to is Felix. Pair that with their proximity to the twins and each other, and my best guess is that Felix and Gabriel were originally brothers that each married one of the twins. Felix to Pepa, like in the movie, and Gabriel to Letta. As for what his personality would have been like, well, the jungle background on his card, his bright yellow shorts, and his big wide smile kinda tell me that he would have been a wide-eyed explorer type. Someone who's always fascinated by seeing new things like exotic locations and animals. And if that's the case, he could not have married into a better family. A lush organic forest containing a massive mountain range concealing a family with freaking magical abilities that no one has ever seen before? That's a lot of new things to see. Poor guy probably had a heart attack when he first heard about all this. The idea of an outsider to the Madrigal family being this excited and fanboyish over everything sounds like a perfect recipe for shenanigans. And while I don't think he'd be entirely necessary, he could have been a fun character. Right next to Gabriel, we have this interesting looking statue. And no, it's not just a piece of decor, it's actually based on a character named Alejandra. The determined look, confident stance, and sword over the shoulder tells me that she was some kind of warrior Madrigal. And the fact that she shows up as a statue in the family picture might imply that she died during some kind of battle or something. So yeah, in a different reality, there probably would have been an Encanto movie that involved flashback fight scenes. Like Alejandra would be leading a pack of warriors, protecting the Encanto from invaders. Her gift was probably something like super speed to take out a bunch of enemies at once, or maybe she can summon weapons Urza Scarlet style. But even though she fought bravely and held back the attackers, she eventually died a warrior's death. While this definitely sounds cool on paper, I'm glad they never alluded to anything combat or battle related in Encanto. The whole conflict of the film revolves around internal family issues without any need for a main antagonist, so having the Madrigals fight off bad guys in a big battle scene would feel really out of place. Speaking of out of place, we have this woman, Princesa. I honestly have no idea what to make of this character. She looks like Lottie from Princess and the Frog with a base tan. She's got a smug look on her face and her name literally translates to princess, so maybe she was meant to be the perfect girl of the family before Isabella took that role? I mean, there's flowers blooming all over her portrait, and we've got concept art of her snuggling up to Mariano here, so it's definitely a possibility. Heck, maybe we were gonna have two Isabellas at one point. One that flaunts her perfection 24/7, and one who's more humble and reserved. If that's the case, I'm kinda glad they didn't go there, since one Isabella is definitely enough. She's perfect the way she is, and we love her. The rest of these are likely more main character beta designs that were heavily changed later on. Like this character named Miranda is probably beta Julieta, since she was right next to Augustin in the family photo, plus there's a similar looking woman cuddling up to him on his character page. The fact that she's holding a rabbit also might imply that her gift used to have something to do with animals. Or maybe she's just planning to make rabbit stew, who knows. Run, Thumper, run! The short husky girl with sneakers doesn't have a name, but this is likely Beta Luisa. Heck, on the page that talks about her scrapped room, there's a picture of this character and Mirabel on the room's unused roller coaster. So yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. And Hugo here is probably a Beta Antonio, with this whole animal gimmick background and the toucan on his shoulder. Heck, the first animal Antonio talks to in the film is a toucan.
Coincidence? I think not!
There are also a few scrapped characters that didn't make it into the group photo, the most notable of which being Isabel's rejected love interest, Bubo. That's a fun name to say. Bubo. Bubo. Anyway, Bubo was originally going to be a sort of dorky fish out of water type character with a much more modern aesthetic compared to the rest of the Encanto's residents. Heck, there's actually a deleted scene where Isabella tries to flee the Encanto with Bubo in secrecy before Mirabel catches them, and he definitely does seem like a quirky, likable guy in that scene. Ultimately though, I think it's a good idea that he was cut. The idea of Isabel reinventing herself mid-movie with Mirabel's help is a lot more interesting than having her already be reinvented and trying to keep it a secret. So yeah, sorry Bubo, but I think it's better that you stayed away from this film. On an earlier page, there's a picture of this smiling old woman who seems pretty happy despite all the chaos happening behind her. Like, look at all this. Planes crashing, volcanoes erupting, freaking sharks and tentacles everywhere. It's insane. Maybe her gift involved causing destruction wherever she went and yet always coming out completely unharmed? Like a Hispanic Milo Murphy or something? But my favorite scrapped character in the book by far is this one, Beatrice. This girl is just styling. Look at that big yellow flower, that pantsuit, and that confident stance. This is definitely a girl that steals the show whenever she walks into the room. You cannot convince me otherwise. Heck, I want her to be in the movie just based on how she looks. But what do I think her character would have been like? Well, I do have one idea, and please try to stay with me here. If you look in the corners of her portrait, you'll notice this symbol containing 4 diamonds. I did some research to see if this meant anything, and apparently, according to the laws of cartomancy and tarot card reading, 4 diamonds is meant to symbolize important revelations, noteworthy hints that will lead you to some kind of treasure in the future. Like, you could be searching for something important for years, and all you had to do was just dig in the right spot to find it. Now, the idea of giving people revelations about their future sounds a lot like what Bruno did in the movie, right? Well, I like to imagine that Beatrice was originally designed to be Bruno's sister, who had a very similar gift to him, where she told the future with tarot cards instead of jade tiles. But where the two of them would differ was in how they chose to use their gifts. Picture this. You got Beatrice and you got Bruno, or Oscar as he was originally called. Both Madrigals that can tell your future in different ways. Beatrice, being the well-presented crowd pleaser, would tell you your future, but with a lot of sugarcoating and rewording in order to make it always sound positive, even if it's not. Basically, she tells you what you want to hear by stretching the truth a lot. Meanwhile, when you ask Oscar for your future, he tells you exactly what he sees, wholesale, no strings attached, positive or negative. And because life is usually full of tragedy, 9 times out of 10 your future would be bad, just like what happened in the movie. This would obviously lead to Beatrice becoming very popular among the Encanto residents, and Bruno becoming very outcasted and hated just like in the original movie, which could be one of the main factors that ultimately drives him away from the family. Yup, I got all that from a tiny detail that was probably just put there for decoration. I really have lost it this time. I honestly don't think Bruno needs any kind of siblings, as his arc is fantastic on its own, but hey, the moral dilemma of telling people what they want to hear versus what they should hear is definitely an interesting one, and I certainly think the film could have done something meaningful with that if they had the time. Oh, and I almost forgot to talk about Raimi. He seems like a nice guy. Alright, that covers everything in the official art book, but we're not quite done yet. There's still one more batch of unused characters, and they come from one of the lead art directors of the film, Scott Wantabe. Yep, apparently this guy drew all kinds of concept art that wasn't even featured in the book, like magical bubble baths, underwater bedrooms, books as needlessly long as my videos, and...
an underground race of potato people! What?
But anyways, we got 2 more rejected characters from this guy, and they actually come with descriptions this time. Let's check them out. First up, Zoe. Anyone who knew Zoe knew that she had a way with machines. Some would even say that she could speak to them, whispering and soothing them under her touch. Like under some spell, those machines would repair themselves from their former dilapidated state, running even better than previously before. Curiously, when Zoe would fall into slumber, so would the machines, refusing to work until their savior awoke. And anyone who knew Zoe would know that she was never one to miss a siesta. So basically, Zoe is a very narcoleptic girl who's able to repair broken machines with a simple touch. And when she conks out, so too do the things she helps repair. I'm not gonna lie, I love this concept. Having a character that can keep any gadget humming as long as she's awake is pretty adorable. I just hope the parents wouldn't constantly wake her up all the time. Like, rise and shine, Zoe, mama's gotta do laundry. Or, wakey wakey, sweetie, daddy's gotta listen to the morning news. Poor thing would never get any sleep if that was the case. That being said, while she definitely looks and sounds adorable, I don't think she'd have much use in the movie. It seems like the Madrigal household was always meant to be a very traditional place with next to no technology, so I don't really know if a gift like hers would make much sense. I mean, what is she gonna repair? The flash camera that got used once? This gramophone that appears in one scene? This typewriter that is never used? So yeah, I really love her concept, but I can kinda see why she was cut. And last but not least, we have the twins, Amelia and Sophia. And just for this one, I'm gonna put on my big announcer voice. Trust me, we're gonna need it.
Amelia and Sophia were inseparable from the moment of birth. Though destiny would have it otherwise, and on their 15th birthday, without warning, the twins unleashed dual blinding auras over unsuspecting guests. These auras contained all the beauty and ugliness that the twins had collected inside of them since birth. Respectively, Amelia's the former, and Sophia is the latter. The crowd immediately fell in love with Amelia, and revulsion towards Sophia for reasons they could not quite say. And so the inseparable twins had a wedge of destiny wrenched between them that would not be undone for decades to come.
Yep, apparently one of the original character concepts involves the sibling versions of yin and yang. Literally the embodiments of pure good and pure evil having a falling out when they came of age. Jeez, there's enough plot in that description for its own movie. And honestly, I think that's why these 2 were cut. This definitely feels like a description for 2 protagonists, not 2 side characters. I'm not saying that it couldn't have worked in the movie, but by the time Mirabel heard their backstory, met up with both of them, listened to their plights, helped them out, reunited them, picked up the dry cleaning, bought milk, it just would have taken too much time. If you tried to put these 2 in the movie, you definitely would not have the time to explore the other characters that much. And considering what we got in the final product, that would just be a major shame. So yeah, I know that these are some bold assumptions to make from just a few images, but hey, a good piece of art can tell you a lot about a certain character. And while I'm no substitute for the original creator's vision, it's definitely fun to guess what could have been. A picture's worth 1,000 words! Or in my case, over 4,000. Jeez. But what do you guys think? What do you make of all these scrapped characters I showed you? And what are your thoughts on my insane ideas? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.